I'm just getting ripped from my crappy defense. I'm like, man, you were close. You were nowhere close. Come on, man. Yeah, so I mean that gets to the point now of, I guess, the idea or the concept of the debrief. Right? In the movie Top Gun, they actually have debriefs. It's not introduced as a debrief per se, right? But I don't know if you were aware, but they gather up after and they start talking about what went wrong. And it's Tom Cruise makes the point of like, well, say that to his family, you know, and at the funeral.
Yeah, that's right.
Kind of thing.
Right.
So that is what we would refer to as a debrief, of a massively shortened version of one.
Massively shortened, especially a weapons school debrief, right?
Yeah. So the debrief, the idea is you prep, you go out, you fly, and now there's recording devices, there's you know what, recording all this information, and you're trying to put it together to ultimately see how you did and then figure out what to do next time.
Yeah.
What did we screw up? What could we maybe have done differently? And this is, everybody sort of has their chance to shine, either what they did well or see in quite clear footage what they didn't do or should have done, or you know what you name it. And so that can get quite lengthy depending on the complexity of the mission. This can run anywhere from you come back in, you get settled, go to the bathroom, get your gear off, do some paperwork a little bit, come in the room, and now this can go anywhere from literally a quick one like 30 minutes, right? All the way to 2 hours if it's a relatively complicated one, or if you're doing something vastly complicated, you're talking another 4 or 5 hours.
Absolutely.
Easily.
And complicated is a good word, because every sortie, no matter what you were doing, was generally really complicated, and you break it down bit by bit by bit. I mean, the dissection was sometimes absolutely amazing to me, and especially when we go down and support the weapons school down at Nellis or something like that, where you're like, wow, and using all the debrief tools, which are now way more advanced than even what we had, where you could actually, recreate every moment, every second, and figure out what guys were doing right and wrong, and because it was a matter of life and death. Right.
And that's what I guess I want to start a little bit on this debrief idea is, when I went to fighter lead-in, we had film. And
what kind of film?
I don't know. It's like 8mm. I have no idea.
I flew the F5. Okay. We had 16 millimeter. No, yeah, it was 16 millimeter film that we'd have to go develop ourselves.
That's right.
We had to go develop ourselves, and it was, and you'd have to stop it frame by frame in the HUD that was this big with a little reticle, and go, and then count the number of frames on the target, and then do a size relationship because of milliliters, right? And then go, oh, I can't call that a kill because I'm one frame off.
And by the way, that could have happened days after you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So the point here is the technology has changed, advanced over the years to, let's call that version 1, let's say, or version 1 is we had no film, right? We just come back and he who has the loudest mouth, wins.
Exactly.
Let's talk about what happened.
Who owns the chalk?
The next version was, well, we've got this gun camera footage, if you will, and so we're going to bring that back and we're going to talk about it, but we still really don't know for sure what you did as far as shooting this or that adversary. We're going to judge that later. Right now, we're going to take your word for it.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be your own judge whether, okay, that was a kill or not. And I remember distinctly being at Fighter Lead-In and having this system, and you had to get your film judged, like an instructor pilot had to walk in and he would like, oh, you got some time here, show me some film.
Right.
You'd be like, here's my film,
and the guy sign it off.
The guy would have to sign off your grade book. And I remember feeling like I got my butt kicked by one of my buddies in BFM, and he's over there reviewing his film. It's like his sight, his pipper's nowhere close to my airplane. He's calling gun kills and all this kind of stuff in the air, and I'm just getting ripped from my crappy defense. I'm like, man, you were close. You were nowhere close. Come on, man. So that kind of thing not necessarily because guys were cheating. It's just you're real time trying to judge it on your own, and that can be quite difficult.
Well, and it was the scrutiny, the level of scrutiny and the accuracy. So, yeah, to me, I mean, a good one is going to a red flag exercise, and where you go out there and you come back and you go, I had 5 kills or whatever, and then you go into the actual debrief where it's electronically recorded, and all of a sudden you realize you died like 3 times before you even got a shot off.
Yeah.
And then you also realize that every shot you took was out of parameters.
Right. Yeah. So
I mean,
that became the next evolution, right? They would track what our plane did,
yes,
to be able to show on a big, everyone's in the room, and people would get lost,
right?
You name it, things happened, and there was no disguising it, right? There was
and that to me would be take a giant leap forward now with the F-35 or whatnot. Everything is digitized and it's capable of being transmitted and recorded almost real time.
Right.
So the level of scrutiny is even way higher.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Right.
I mean.
So when you and I flew, generally we had VCR recording devices, basically that filmed our HUD, and so you could take that in. It was not a go develop it kind of thing. It was just reverse the thing back to the important part and show me the kill or show me the shot or that kind of thing, and gather what critical information there was. And that right there, that process could take 30 minutes.
Correct.
Easily to find the shots, find the time, sync up, maybe try to learn a little bit about what happened and compare notes perhaps, and then start the actual debrief about what you did, and then you've got the information to give. Now somebody has to actually draw that up on the board.
Yeah.
What happened on literally, like, we got the green screen here, we got a whiteboard, pens of multicolor, and depending on how many people in the room, this can take a while.
This can take a while. So now I think what they do with the F-35 is they walk in and they take the chip out of their tooth and they plug it in, and then it's all right there, and they're like, "Do you have any questions?" And oh, by the way, I can't tell you anything. Right. You're dead. You're dead. You're dead.
Yeah, so there's but rest assured, there is a way to verify everything at this
Absolutely.
point.
And
you're monitored for every possible thing. I can think of, I guess, something a thought that just occurred to me. We were having a turkey shoot when I was in Luke, in Phoenix, and so it was
What's turkey shoot?
Wing turkey shoot is a what did we do? A competition that was, they brought in these Canadian Hornets, and we were to fight the adversary. Each squadron had to present a 4-ship to fight the adversary out in the ranges out there.
Okay.
So we do our thing. We've actually done quite well. I think in the end we wind up killing them all, and we're so proud.
Woo!
Except that at the end the guy goes, "I want to see your shots." So
No.
I'm like, okay, my shots are good.
You mean I have to prove what I did?
My shots are good, and so I put the tape in, and well, I got slow below the shot. So there's we'll get to now a little bit of the idea of the training rules, or rules you have to abide by when you're out there flying. And so he puts my tape in. I've called a kill, but I was slow. I was below the speed I should have been down low, which is a training rule violation. And so now, oops, that kill doesn't count, or we have to penalize you for the training rule violation, whatever.
Turns out golf.
Turns out we would have won. I would have been the victorious person.
It would have made the difference.
And that one thing right there negated that shot.
Shame on your face.
And for a good reason, right? It's like, no, we want to see the exact details
Yeah.
of what happened. And there's certain rules that you have to abide by. And,
Absolutely.
And when things happen, in my case, if it wasn't a sin to go below that speed, I just needed to re-speed back up again and sort of kind of keep going again. So there was the idea of the training rules they talk about in the movie a little bit, and they've even talked about it in both movies, this idea of a hard deck and all that stuff. There's
Right.
The training rules are what, Sticky? What would you describe to someone? How would you say, what is it? What are the training rules here? The names have changed over the years.
Yeah.
Like, what is it?
Okay, so the training rules are fences that have been imposed, parameters that are imposed in a training environment because probably in the past they're written in blood, that someone has done something that has ended badly, probably in a fatality or multiple fatalities, or maybe loss of an aircraft, something like that. So they've been built on over the years. Now that's specifically Air Force. I mean, there is a difference between the Navy and the Air Force when it comes to that. You know, the Air Force basically comes across as if it's not written down, you can't do it. And in the Navy, if it's not written down, go try it. To a degree. I mean, I've got a lot of, we've both got a lot of Navy friends and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So, and that's not to say that it's reckless flying or anything like that. It's just a different type of flying. The Air Force imposed training rules, I would say, much more rigidly, and we definitely felt, I mean, when I went out and flew, I was like, if I violate a training rule, well, one, I'm going to get my butt handed to me because that kill wasn't valid or something like that, like your example.
Yeah.
So I'm just not helping myself. But on the other hand, too, I didn't want to go out and kill anybody else or kill myself. So I honored those. I really do. And I don't think anybody goes out with that intention. But I would say that the training rules are viewed differently from different services. And the Navy, I think they viewed them a little bit differently as well. Nothing wrong with that. But that's probably why you got a little bit different spin on it in Top Gun, too, because they view it completely differently.
Yeah. But they do mention the idea that there are things you cannot do.
That's true.
Like,
but then they flew below the hard deck like you read about in the movie. So you're like, what are we doing here? Why don't you call knock it off and we're dead?
Right. Well, you can see in the movie there's this push and pull of, well, that's not how it's going to be for real.
Right.
We need to train how it's going to be for real. But the other side of that argument is, well, but we're not there right now. So let's either walk up to what it is we're trying to train to do, or we have to put certain parameters on it, or we're gonna have 5 fatalities out here before we even go fly the mission. So we have to. There's a balance there of how much can we do, what should we be doing, and how much do we limit that. There's no right answer there. There's the perceived. This is the policy, and the general, the admiral, or whatever makes the policy.
Well, and that was what I was going to point out in the movie. You know, when the admiral basically says to Maverick or whatever, you're done, you're reckless, you're da 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 da. I mean, you know, he's looking at it from the bigger picture, right? I can't lose airplanes, I can't lose people, pilots, yada yada yada. But then for Maverick to go out and just, you know, procure an airplane and go do it, I don't even think in the Navy they'd look past that one. They'd be like, you're done.
Oh, come on. No big deal. No big deal. But the idea of the training rules...
But he's got balls, so it's okay.
Yeah. But the training rules were there, and everybody breaks them at some point in little fashions or big fashion, right? I mean, there's been a certain degree in probably, not a lot of sorties, but many times training rules are broken that are like, okay, this is the point in the debrief where we stop and talk.
Well, so let's use an example, because you probably seen
I've got
it.
a couple.
So how about nose high goes high?
Okay.
Okay, there's a simple training rule. And so Merge, what's the
I got a beard.
Right, but what's the setup for that? What does that mean? Nose high goes high. I just say that in a briefing, everybody understands it, but how does that translate to, you know, when you're out flying?
Right. So in the movie, I guess the best way I could say that, I think when they're in the F-14, they meet up with the 5th generation fighter.
Oh yeah, all right.
And
steely-eyed,
the
mega.
The 5th generation fighter does this maneuver that sends him sort of flying by their canopy in what seems to be a pretty out of control fashion and almost unbelievable.
Right.
Like, oh, that can't possibly,
the Cobra maneuver.
That can't possibly be real.
Right.
So what the nose high goes high and some of these other training rules are meant to do is to give some order to this chaos that's happening when jets are close to each other.
Correct.
As people start to make their own decisions about how am I going to win, there are some gentlemen's agreements, I guess, that say when you're in a certain place, this is what you're expected to do.
And this is in a training environment. That's the training rules underlying training, not necessarily combat. But the point is there's more training losses, if you look at statistically, than there are actually in combat. Let me give you a great example, if I may. I was part of the planning Air Operations Center on the ground when we executed Allied Force in 1994 over Kosovo. And we were putting about 1,000 airplanes a night over 1,000 sorties, roughly. That included tankers and whatnot, but everything all up in the air at one time. And over Macedonia, up into Kosovo, dropping weapons and then hitting targets and then egressing, and then they would do it again. And they've all got to come out and hook up with tankers to refuel and then go back in and do it again and da-da-da-da-da, right? Planning nightmare. We had less conflict with airplanes over the combat area than we almost lost lots of airplanes rejoining on the tankers just to get gas. That was more chaos, and it was a should have been a benign environment. It has nothing to do with people shooting at you. So, I mean, that's a great example because it's a training environment where they have higher statistical losses than you actually do in the combat.
Yeah, I was laughing because the closest I came to actually being hit by another airplane was in the traffic pattern.
Yeah, I believe it.
It was coming into land.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
I had Thunderbird 6 almost spear me in the pattern one time. And, I mean, he didn't mean it. We were following procedures and whatnot. I just happened to look out to the right, and all of a sudden I've got a needle-nosed F-16 coming right at me. And the only thing I could do was pull. And then we got on the ground, and I'm like, dude, did you see me? And he's like, no, I had no clue. So, same thing.
Right. And some of that, I guess the training rules, one story I guess I can think of that I learned a lot from personally was the bubble.
Oh, the bubble.
So it's imagined.
Not really like Bubble Boy.
It's imagined that each person has, if you will, an actual spherical bubble around themselves as they go fly. So you're not allowed to go inside of that, and it just depends on where you are, what command, that kind of thing.
As I get older, my bubble just gets really big.
500 feet to 1,000 feet, I guess, was considered, again, depending on what you were doing and that kind of thing. And so I think at the time in Europe, it was 1,000 feet. And I was, I went out to, it was kind of a weather day, and we were just kind of doing some simple exercises. And I was really upset at my flight lead. I got a bit enraged in the cockpit.
Really?
And I don't know why. I don't remember what it was exactly that he did. I think it was just kind of a continuation of things he'd done before, and I was really upset, and I really wanted to just...
You mean there was not constant harmony in the squadron and between personalities, and everybody gets along, and kids and flowers, and
Yeah, so we're doing our thing, and we do this little exercise where I'm basically supposed to gun him, and he's then gonna, I don't know, do a few maneuvers, whatever. It's really just a simple exercise. We're not doing full up maneuvering. And I just wanted to get like a lot of frames on this guy. I really wanted to just have the gun just going back and forth. And when I say frames, there's a way to judge whether it's a good gun kill, and there's a lot of mechanics to that. And I just had to have it, right? And he maneuvered, and I'm giving him more and more, and I'm just fuming at the guy. And then I'm like, hey, you know what?
Then you went Master Armor.
That plane is... No, I said, that plane's getting kind of close. And so I came off, and like I said, the bubble was 1,000 feet, and I think it wasn't super close, but it was probably 500 feet-ish or less. Around that. Yeah. And so he's looking at my tape, and he's like, oh, gee, that was kind of close. And I'm thinking to myself, I never did tell him, but I'm thinking to myself, I can't let emotion get like that.
Yeah.
When I fly.
No, you can't
Anymore.
Yeah, that's a true statement.
That dies today.
Yeah, it has to.
And so in that moment, I kind of realized that aggression, anger, is just going to kill somebody or me, and it's pointless. There was no point in a training exercise getting us both killed over something stupid.
And unfortunately, there have been examples that you and I can talk about of where that has happened in a training environment, and then people, unfortunately, there was fatalities.
Yeah.
So,
right.
I mean...
So anger gets the best of people, pride. You see it in the movie. I mean, they're in a Luftberry that it was highly dangerous. And, we'll have to show that one or diagram it. But you can get very much full of yourself and very much do something really stupid that gets you or the other person killed. And that's what the training rules are.
So that's a really good point, though, because in the movie too, which we loved, I'm not poo-pooing it or anything, but the whole bar scene and stuff like that, and the egos and that, even in Top Gun 1, and then Hitman, and all this other stuff. All that, sort of that ego stuff doesn't really exist because everybody knows they're on all mutual territory and stuff, unless they're just absolutely shit-faced. And then anything can happen at the bar, and you watch some people do some really stupid stuff, but it doesn't generally translate to flying.
Right.
And that goes back to the self-critiquing, because nobody's going to be allowed to get a big hit.
Well, so this is a good point you make. So the movie makes a big point out of we're all competing against each other, right?
Right.
I have to be seen as higher than you or better than you or whatever. That goes on all the time.
Yeah, it does.
Well, I have a different take on it. I think to some degree there's a little bit of that, but I think way more of that, way more competition is aircraft to aircraft.
Yeah. Okay.
Or squadron to squadron. It's like the people that are with me are my squadron mates, our aircraft. We are king of the hill,
Yeah.
right? We're the top. Everybody else in the bar, everybody else on the range, whatever it is lesser than us, and that's the real competition right there of like squadron competition, airframe to airframe competition. That's where it gets way more like you saw in the movie of that kind of jawing. I think it's many times less person to person. It's much more squadron buddies or airframe to airframe.
I totally agree, and translate that to the grunts on the ground. I mean, it's the age-old knowledge that, in a foxhole, you're fighting for the guy next to you as opposed to fighting for the bigger strategic objectives. Right. And so, yeah, it does boil down to that, where it is that it's a healthy competition. Yeah. Let's put it that way, and that's why those training rules are there, to kind of keep the healthy competition within the framework of rules and safety, so that you don't kill people on an average everyday not combat sortie. I mean, come on. And we've had friends, unfortunately, 13 of them that I miss them terribly, but they're not here during training. Why? That's not easily done.
And there are simple things like the weather. Yeah. This is the minimum weather we're going to fight in today.
Yeah.
And somebody's got to make that call, and it's usually not a popular call, but it's like one that we adhere to and say, nope, we don't have what's called a discernible horizon. We need to be able to see up from down. We got to have a certain amount of, whatever. A lot of those weather calls are made, and those are training rules, right? Those are black and white ideas.
Okay, so I know the topic here centers so much about the fighter pilot culture and flying fighters and whatnot, and I get it. I've had the opportunity to fly in the GA world too, and they've got to. They do a really good job, or they attempt to do a really good job of trying to translate those similar kind of concepts into the GA world. But sometimes it's even harder. I mean, because the military, you can pretty much prescribe it to people, and you got to shut up and listen. Right. That's the way it's going to be. But in the civilian world, it's got to almost be self-critiquing and self-controlling, because there aren't squadrons out there generally. So a good example that the Experimental Aircraft Association, called the EAA, I mean, they're huge into trying to get everybody on the same safety set of music, or sheet of music, or whatever it is. Been drinking too much, but because similarly, I mean, to kind of like write civilian training rules and know your airplane. And I mean, it's amazing, and it's really fun. And I've had a chance to work with like a guy named Charlie Precourt, who's a 4-time shuttle commander. He's such a great guy, because he spends all his time trying to figure out how to teach GA pilots how to be safer in their corporate airplanes. And it's just amazing. I mean, it's really pretty good. So it's like setting training rules for the civilian side of the house.
Gotcha.